Yes. Would anyone like to tell me what we've done so far in Sadhana Chatustaya? We did the 4Ds. Anyone remembers what they were? Yes, go ahead, Mahalakshmi.
Discipline.
Discrimination comes first.
Right.
Dispassion, discipline, and desire.
Good. Viveka, Vairagyam, Shatka Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam. And we were on the topic of Shatka Sampatti, and we did the first two of those. Anyone remembers what they were? Shama and Dhamma. Mental discipline and mastery, or mastery of over the mind, you can say. That is Shama, and restraint over the sense organs and the organs of action was Dhamma. So if Shama is there is no need really for Dhamma, but till such time sufficient Shama is not there, we need to actively exercise restraint over the sense organs. Now, we will move on to the third discipline. On page 4, the second set, I will chant. You can repeat after me. Uparamah kaha.
Uparamah kaha.
Swadharma anushtanameva.
Swadharmanusthanameva.
Thank you. So the student asks, what is Uparama? Uparama kaha? And the answer is Swadharma Anushtana is carrying out or observing, and Rama is to delight in. Uparama is basically a strict observance of one's own duty, or to delight in doing one's own duty. We call it Uparama or Uparati, Rati being the female of Rama. So it can also be thought of as sustenance of Shama and Dhamma. Uparama is getting back to yourself. We all have certain duties based on our situation in life that we must do, whether we like it or not. We all have certain duties as a son or daughter, as a spouse, as a parent, as an employee. Certain duties based on your ashrama, your situation in life, and based on your gunas, and your karma, what work you engage in, right? So there is, of course, a human tendency sometimes to not want to do certain things just because we don't like doing them, or wanting to do certain things even if we know they're not correct. Gaining mastery over your likes and dislikes and doing what needs to be done is Uparama. So we might ask, what exactly is my duty? But when we really inquire into it, it is often very clear. We know what we must do and what we must not do, right? On inquiring, this becomes very clear. But we have to be careful to make a distinction between what is your duty and what are the unnecessary obligations you might be taking on, so that we don't waste our resources, our time, energy on going through the motions of something just because of someone else's expectations. If you keep doing that, you will drain yourself. So we talk about 5 kinds of activity or karma. Karma in this context being used as action. So we talk of nitya karma, which is activities prescribed in the scriptures primarily for spiritual growth. These are karma actions that you do on a regular basis, on a daily basis, Then there is naimitya karma. These are occasional activities that are prescribed and primarily again for spiritual growth, right? So this could be, the Pitri Yajna that you do once a year for your forefathers who have passed away and things like that, or special rituals you do on the birth of a child or at a wedding, things like that. Of course, these days we're at Vedanta, which is the end portion, doing with the highest knowledge, and we don't really go through the first portion of the Vedas today, which talk about all these ritualistic portions. So we typically, when you want to know what is dharma of a human being, we look at if you're someone who's not gone through all the first part of the Vedas, most likely you look at 5 kinds of duties, which I'll cover after I finish these karmas. So there is nitya karma, naimitya karma. There is praishchitta karma, which is basically atonement of past misdeeds, remedial measures we must take. So if you wronged someone, hurt someone's feelings, you might have to apologize. If you've caused some financial harm to someone, you have to figure out how to pay back somehow. It could be, you can think of it as medicinal karmani to neutralize the negative effects of past actions. And there is kamya karma, which is kamya meaning desire, karma done to fulfill desires of a material kind or an external kind. So kamya karma are all these actions that we do for material growth or for prosperity, for name and fame, or any of these other purusharthas that we talked about. Right. And then finally, there is nishiddha karma, which is prohibited karma, any karma which is harmful to other people. There are some actions which might be beneficial to myself, but harmful for others. Say cheating in business. This would be nishiddha karma. There are certain activities which are harmful to even myself, like say drinking alcohol, eating food which is not good for this body. Even this would be nishiddha karma. Shastra says, try not to do nishiddha karma. Do not do nishiddha karma. Try to avoid reasons for praishchitta karma and reduce your kamya karma. And uparati or uparama is basically the gradual increase of nitya and naimitya karma, spiritual activities and all the activities which are good for your spiritual growth, and gradual reduction of these other 3. So this can also be called as uparama. Because we're talking about the gradual reduction of these other 3, uparama can also be taken as withdrawal in that sense. Not so much withdrawal that you will go crazy, no one is asking you to go sit in a cave and meditate. Just gradual withdrawal from things which do not serve you, so that you can find enough time for Shastra and for spiritual life. Swadharma Anushtanam, performance eva, only, of your own duty based on your ashrama, your varna, and your personal situation. When we talk about varna in Shastra, we do not mean, we mean guna varna. It's the classification of your varna, whether you're Kshatriya, Brahmin, Shudra, or Vaishya, depends on your qualities, your 3 gunas, the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas predisposition that you have. That is what determines your varna. So if you're someone of a predominantly sattvic nature, and Rajas being the second most predominant, then you would be a Brahmina Varna, right? So you're a Brahmin and you take up activities which are suitable for that, which is could be teaching, could be research, things which require more sattva. And if you're predominantly rajasic in nature, and your second quality is sattva, so you would be a guna kshatriya. So you take up activities which are suitable for that. So that would be people who have kind of protective tendencies. So this could be, army, police, anyone who's into activities which protect and support others in society, right? So that's how the Varna classification actually is in Shastra. And of course, it got quite misrepresented over time by people. I just very briefly touched on it. You will have a whole chapter on gunas in Bhagavad Gita, and you will also talk about what exactly is a guna varna in great detail in Bhagavad Gita. So we won't go into it too much right now. So you basically undertake duties based on your the particular situation you find in life. So Shastra says even the job you do and the kind of actions you perform, you try to align them with your gunas. So that would lead to a more conducive lifestyle, a more pleasant lifestyle for yourself. For someone inclined to spiritual life, it makes sense to keep increasing the sattva in your life, right? So we talked in detail about the three gunas in the previous class. So if you want to increase more sattva, what you do is increase the kind of sattvic impressions and the sattvic activities that you engage in. The gunas you are born with are not necessarily the gunas that you must that will continue with you the rest of your life. So these will keep changing based on what kind of activities you engage in, what kind of impressions you keep taking in. So even when Shastra talks about guna varna, Brahmin, Kshatriya, this can change over the course of your lifetime. So over the course of your lifetime, if you find that this guna composition has changed, it's better you then undertake work or activity which is more suitable for that guna. And because we don't go into the details of this ritualistic part anymore, if we want to know what is my nitya karma and my mitya karma, so duty, of course, should not be just based on my likes and dislikes, but what is prescribed. But because we don't go into the details of this, we talk about 5 reverential services that the Pancha Mahayajna, that we call them, that one can undertake every day and make sure that we have a part of this every day. So Brahma Yajna is a reverential service to Vedic culture. It can be the study of scriptures, the chanting of scriptures even. So that's Brahma Yajna. Then there is, I'll send you a snapshot of these, so don't bother too much about remembering everything. Then we have Deva Yajna. It's the reverential service that you do for the Devatas, including the 5 elements. So having reverence towards all these elements. And so it could be puja and things like that. Also, then there's Pitra Yajna, which is the third one. This is reverential service to the previous generation. your forefathers, and being thankful for that. Everything that we have today came from what your forefathers built, right? Then there is Manushya Yajna, reverential service towards other people, society, social work that you might do. And finally, Bhuta Yajna, reverential service to the animal kingdom or the plant kingdom. Right? Again, this is something we will go into in more detail in Bhagavad Gita. So any questions on Uparama? This is the third discipline. Okay. Then on page 4, the third set, I will chant. Titikshaka.
Titikshaka.
Shitoshna.
Shitoshna.
Sukha dukkhadi.
Sukha
Dukkha-dukkhaadi.
Sahishnutvam.
Sahishnutvam.
So, Titiksha, the fourth discipline, is endurance. It's a useful quality, not just, of course, for spiritual life, but in non-spiritual situations as well. All people have to face some unpleasant situations in life. We know already that life is a mix of painful and pleasurable experiences. The pain can come in the form of physical pain or mental pain. So in this answer, what is the Tiksha? It says Sahishnutvam, endurance, the capacity to cheerfully endure, not just put up with. Shitaha and Ushnaha means cold and heat. Dukkaha means pleasure and pain. So to be able to put up with these, to tolerate the pairs of opposites like heat and cold, referring to physical endurance, and to be able to cheerfully endure the pairs of opposites of pleasure and pain, referring to mental endurance. So if it's giving a very simple example, right now we're in April, entering the peak summers. So some of you might be in places like Delhi or these places where it gets to 45 degrees. You know it's going to be hot in Delhi in May. There is no point constantly thinking it is hot, it is hot. It is better you accept the situation and say, yes, it's hot, and do what needs to be done. You know, so because samsara is defined by these dualities. If there is some pain, we often make it worse by what Swami Dayananda calls lumping. So, for example, a person goes to the doctor and says, oh, I'm in great pain. And the doctor asks, what kind of pain? He's like, my whole body is in great pain. And the doctor says, oh, your whole body is in pain. And then the person says, oh, no, actually, it's my legs. The doctor says, okay, so both your legs have some pain. And the person says, it's my left leg. And the doctor says, okay, so your whole left leg is in pain. The person says, no, it's my knee. And the doctor says, okay, let me check it out. And then he starts tapping. Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? And the person says, no, no. And then finally says, does it hurt here? And the person says, oh, yes, that one point I have some pain. So that's lumping. So instead of pinpointing a particular area of difficulty and dealing with it, we make it a mountain out of the molehill, as they say. How do we generally handle pain in life? So what do most of us do? We could try to find a solution. That's the most common thing this humans do, try to find a solution for the pain, some kind of remedial measure. Sometimes it works, but oftentimes not, and it could be too time consuming or expensive, the solution. So if it's hot in Delhi in May, sometimes we can, get an AC if we can afford it. Try to not go out in the peak time of 12 to 4 when it's going to be the hottest, if we can, again, manage it. But if we kind of try too much, we might end up with a new pain in the process of trying to get a remedy. So often, say if someone has a knee injury and they're trying to protect that knee, they might subconsciously put more and more pressure on the other knee to not avoid injuring this. So in time, if you keep doing that, you will overuse that second knee, and you will make the first knee even weaker because it was not getting used, right? So finding a solution is good, but we should be careful to not create new injury in the process. So the second thing people try to do is tolerate the pain, either because there is no remedy or it's too expensive. So the pressure mounts up in the body, and the time comes when we're not able to handle the pain. And then the pain might convert to anger, and we explode, literally blowing your top, as they say. So you could be blowing your top on, most likely some unsuspecting victim when this happens. So that's the second thing a lot of us do. We try to tolerate the pain. Or the third thing we try to do is silently suppress the pain, perhaps for years and years. Surrounding people are not victimized in this case, but I victimize myself and cause physiological damage to myself, maybe even some deep trauma. Scriptures talk of a fourth option. We all have a capacity to endure the pain. This is called titiksha. So this is not a suppression, or this is not trying to tolerate something which is too hard to tolerate. This is endurance. We will talk more about what that means. The fourth method is basically the elevation of the threshold level of our pain. The tolerance threshold, we know, varies from person to person. Even for yourself, your endurance level varies from time to time. You might be able to tolerate certain situations better at a particular time and not so well in other times. This threshold is often very subjective. So what is this threshold exactly? So you can think of this threshold as your equilibrium zone, or maybe your zone of tolerance, or your resilience zone. When you're within this threshold, whatever is happening, you do not experience it as pain at all. Only when something goes beyond this threshold, it becomes pain. And we can employ practices to improve this threshold, right? So there is this example of an ER person, when they attend to you in an emergency situation, say in an accident or something, and there is this very simple thing they do where the person might be screaming in pain, and they will say, can you rate this pain on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to the worst pain you ever had? Right? So asking them to recall the worst pain they ever had, and then asking them to rate this pain that they have currently against that would change what they're rating tremendously. So if they just said, rate your pain, people might say, oh, it's like the worst. This is more than 10, But if they say, okay, think of the worst pain you had and now rate it, they might give a more moderate response. So that's a very simple, quick mental trick to endure that pain very to better, right? So mental pain usually occurs because of expectations, because we expect something, other people to act a certain way, we expect situation to work out a certain way. But when you start accepting that no one else has a capacity to hurt me, it is only my own expectations which can hurt me, it can be very liberating. It doesn't mean, of course, that you let bad behavior go or become a doormat, but think of how you would be with a child, for example. If a child misbehaves and you try to explain to the child, but they continue to misbehave, you can choose to be stern with the child, right? Not because you lost your temper, which would be just more pain for you, but because you want the child to understand what's good for him. Right? That can be like that with anything else. If someone's misbehaving with you, you can, of course, take the necessary actions. You can be stern, you can even put on a show of anger if it's really required in the situation. But don't cause additional mental pain to yourself by actually letting yourself feel all those emotions and get carried away with those emotions. A person of titiksha can work to improve the situation, not because of intolerance, but because the situation has to be improved. This intolerance-based correction is a form of suffering to yourself and not very effective. So we can try to increase our tolerance limit. How? How do we do that? First, we can try to understand our own threshold, your own triggers. Where is this zone of resilience for me? And am I currently in this zone of resilience? Try to be aware of that. Try to be aware when you're regulated or not regulated. So we've all experienced angry, right? Getting angry when we are too hungry or maybe even thirsty. So if it's a few hours past your meal time and you're, of course, physically feeling more tired because of it, and you have to handle a particular situation, your capacity to handle it might be not so good. So try to be aware of this. Where are you in your own threshold? Are you within your threshold or outside it? So, and if we're not in our threshold right now, what do? We try to handle the situation later, if possible, and first focus on getting back into your threshold. And otherwise, if it really requires, the situation cannot be put off, you can employ practices like, say, deep breathing. In yoga, of course, we talk about pranayama, controlling the mind through controlling your breath, or any other mindfulness practices to come back to to regain some of this equilibrium and then handle the situation. To borrow a concept from psychology to explain this, we have two factors in our nervous system always at play. So it's called the sympathetic nervous system. These are activities which gets your heart rate higher, makes action occur. And there is the parasympathetic nervous system, which slows down, makes us rest, slows down your heart rate. So these two forces are always working within you, right? And when they're working like they should, you will be when they're working like they should, you will be within your zone of resilience. But if a certain situation, a certain trigger happens, and one of these systems kind of overfunction, right? So, for example, you see you're driving and someone cuts you off really fast. So your sympathetic nervous system might get activated, and you, instead of, this is something which takes your heart rate up, it might make you suddenly shoot up out of your resilience zone into the high zone, right? So other situations, like say you, that's when you're kind of in your fight or flight response, when you're in your high zone. If something else instead takes you into a low zone, you could be in a freeze response. This is when you're in your low zone, this is when you're prone to depression, exhaustion, like this feeling of being overwhelmed, or the sense of hopelessness, and so on. And when you're in your high zone, you could be prone to fits of anger, high anxiety, feeling threatened, anything which makes you want to fight or fight. So the first step is actually just observing yourself and checking in with yourself. Where am I right now? Am I in my resilience zone, or am I in my high or low zone? And then you take the necessary actions to come back to your resilience. You don't, when you find yourself not in your equilibrium, that's a bad time to really taking any decisions or taking any actions. That's the time you can just be aware that I'm not at my best self right now, and this is not the time to say something to someone or act in a particular way. So you focus your attention instead on coming back to your resilience zone. When you're actually in your resilience zone, you are present, you're in the now moment, you have access to joy and happiness, you feel safe and secure, you're better able to connect with people, better able to accurately read someone's expressions, and so on. If you're not really in that zone, just a neutral expression could look very threatening to you. So one of the ways to increase your titiksha is to first become aware of where you are, and then there are other practices you can employ: mindful movement, yoga, pranayama, meditation. All these things will help you increase your titiksha in the long run. Any questions? Okay, let's continue. In the 4th page again, last line. Shraddha kridishi.
Shraddha kimshi.
Guru Vedanta.
Guru Vedanta.
Vakyadi.
Vakyadishu
Vishwasha Shraddha.
Vishwasashraddha.
Thank you. So Shraddha means having faith. Having faith in the words of Vedantas, the scripture, and also the Guru, the teacher. Now, some of you might have an objection in your mind, especially if you remember what I said in the introduction class. I emphasized how mainstream religion will ask for blind faith, and spirituality is completely opposed to that. a spiritual person inquires, I told you Vedanta will not ask you for blind faith. You must be able to satisfy your intellect. So what is this faith that I'm talking about? So the full definition of Shraddha must include having faith in the words of the Guru and the scripture as pramanam, as a valid source of knowledge. So we talked about what is a valid source of knowledge, a pramanam. It tells you something that no other pramanam can. I gave you the example of that white kurta. How did you know the kurta was white? Because your eyes told you it was white. You cannot taste the whiteness, you cannot smell the whiteness, you cannot know the whiteness of that kurta in any other way, because the only pramanam which would work in this case is your eyes, right? So Shastra is talking about Brahman, which cannot be perceived by any of the senses. Every pramanam is self-valid by itself unless it gets negated. So these teachings may not be able to be proved by anything else, by reasoning or logic or anything, but no other pramanam or no reasoning will be able to disprove this teaching. So when Shastra tells you something which is very hard to believe, like you are the whole, you are the infinite, you are absolute bliss, and these statements seem hard to believe, you give the benefit of the doubt. You might not understand it yet, but trust that it will be clarified later. And you inquire. If there is a doubt, you ask. Vedanta is not asking for any kind of blind faith. Not inquiring is actually an insult to Shastra. It's an insult to the teacher and to the Sampradaya. You must inquire. You must not take this on blind faith. When you see an equation like E is equal to mc square, you cannot just keep chanting E is equal to mc square 1,00,000 times and the meaning draws on you. You must inquire into what is E, what is M, what is C, and what is the squared. Only then you will understand the equation through the help of a teacher who will help you understand what is E is equal to mc square. And similarly, it is with these equations that is given in Shastra, like Tattvamasi, thou art that. We must inquire into what is thou, what is that, and what is this aikyam, what is this the oneness that Shastra is talking about. According to Vedanta, ignorance is the cause of all problems in life. All emotional problems are caused because of this ignorance. This is samsara. It is because of this bhava roga. Bhava roga is identifying with this body-mind sense complex. So when you have a medical problem, what do? You go to a doctor, you go to a medical doctor, and the doctor will give you a remedy. Now, you may either think, okay, this doctor knows what they're doing, or you might feel, okay, no, I don't quite trust this doctor, so you might go to a different doctor. So from an allopathic doctor, you might go to a different Ayurvedic doctor, or a naturopathy doctor, or a homeopathy doctor. But at some point, you will find a doctor who you think, okay, I think I trust this doctor, and I think they know what they're doing, what they're saying. So to actually be treated, you will have to have faith in this doctor and employ the remedies that they give. Then only you will get better. So if you do not trust that doctor, and do not take the prescription that they give, it's not going to help you in any way. You're not going to get rid of that roga. And so it's the same with this spiritual problem, this bhava roga that we have. If you, even for the spiritual disease, when you find a sampradaya or a teacher, that then when you choose to study with them, if you intuitively feel that there is some wisdom there in this teaching, then you will have to have some faith in the teacher and the system of this knowledge to get rid of this samsara roga. So this sentence says, having faith in Guru. Guru literally means one who dispels or removes the darkness, of ignorance. One who takes away this bhavaroga is who is a Guru. And it's important to have faith in the Guru Vakya, because Shastra has to be revealed in a particular way. It cannot be just read in a book, or there is a point, when you've studied sufficiently, you can also go read yourself. But initially, the Shravanam is the way this knowledge is revealed and is expected to be understood. So the teacher will reveal the knowledge that they've received through a lineage, because there is a particular way to reveal this knowledge. And that's why this line says Guru Vakya is important. So the Guru is not, the teacher is not giving their own knowledge. They are only talking about the knowledge given in the scriptures, which was revealed to them through the Sampradaya. Now, I said, if you to pick a teacher and for this teaching to work on you, you need to have faith and use your intuition and your intellect to trust, see if you can trust this teaching and the teacher. What if you don't fully trust your own intuition at this point? What can you do then? The same thing you do with a medical doctor. You take other people's opinion. Many of you probably are here because some trusted friend told you that this teaching worked for them. Else, if that's not the case, find one of the old students here and ask them how this teaching has worked for them over the months or years. Has it cured them of this bhavaroga in some way? Has their FIR improved? What are the benefits that they are seeing of doing this teaching month after month and year after year? And no intelligent person, like we said, undertakes any activities unless they see a benefit. So inquire for yourself in some time if you see the benefit. So that is Shraddha. Any questions? On page 5, Samadhanam kim
Samadhanam kim
chitta ekagrata.
chittaikagrata.
So now we are at the 6th and final discipline of the Shatka Sampatti. The student asks, Samadhanam kim? What is Samadhanam? And the teacher says, Chitta ekagrata, which means one-pointedness of the mind. That is, the focusing capacity of the mind, the concentration or attention span. In the short term, it means focusing on the here and now, focusing your attention on this class right now, what is being said, being mentally present. And in the long term, keeping your eye on the goal. Of course, to keep your eye on the goal, you must know what the goal is. In the short term, focusing on one thing at a time. This is an accomplishment which is difficult for many of us, which is why the exercise of concentration meditation is recommended to build this capacity. So if I would highly encourage those of you who don't currently have some kind of meditation practice to start introducing some kind of concentration meditation practice or mindfulness meditation or any other kind of meditation. Of course, later in Vedanta, we will talk about what is Vedantic meditation, which is Nididhyasanam. That is contemplating on the self based on the teachings. But right now, but to contemplate on the self based on the teachings, you first must receive that teaching. So if Tattva Bodha is your very first class, this might come a bit later because you first need to receive some of these teachings. But if you build this focusing capacity through any kind of, say, mantra meditation or any other concentration meditation techniques, you will improve that focusing capacity of the mind to stay on one topic. And then you will be able to pick up the teaching and be able to contemplate on this aham brahmasmi, that I am Brahman. It doesn't mean you repeat I am Brahman as a mantra or something. You will contemplate on what exactly it means to say aham brahmasmi, which is all the knowledge given through these teachings. So we will talk about that later, but for now, I'm just encouraging you to start with some kind of meditation practice. If you don't currently have one and want to be guided with what is suitable for you, you can also reach out to me and I can suggest something, right? So we all have this focusing capacity in some way. We all have this actually capacity to achieve samadhi, complete absorption in something. It happens naturally when you're interested. All of us at some point have either had movie samadhi or cricket samadhi or book samadhi. If you're interested, you might have read a whole book cover to cover in one day. I know it's happened to me. So everyone can concentrate, and unless there is a pathological problem, it's simply a matter of discovering the attraction for the topic. Samadhanam also means, excuse me. Samadhanam also means not being interested in too many things at the same time or doing too many things at the same time. We have a word for it today. We call it multitasking. But really, is there anything like multitasking? Can you really be doing multiple things at the same time, or are you sequentially doing those things in split seconds of time? Right. So we might often find it, while multitasking itself is put on such a high pedestal today, it might be much better to do one thing at a time. You'll have more of that focusing capacity to really concentrate on the task at hand and do a better job of it. So this kind of chitta ekagrata, this be able to attain this complete absorption, of course, this itself won't give you moksha. Samadhanam is a qualification. And a lot of these meditation techniques which exist today, they can be used as preparatory exercises to gain this capacity to focus on one thing. And just after gaining this focusing capacity, you'll be able to then focus on the teaching of aham brahmasmi. And of course, chitta ekagrata is, like all these qualifications, is just good for you in life in general, not just for your spiritual pursuit. In the long run, I said, one has to be clear about your goal. Many people have no clue about their goal. How many of you after high school weren't sure what you wanted to do, so you studied what your parents suggested or what you saw a lot of your friends doing? It's still understandable that at 17 or 18, you didn't know what you want to do with life. But many people reach 80 and can still not know what they want. My advice for that would be use your intellect and also your intuition to determine individually what is important to you. Many times we take on goals which everyone around us tells we should want. But inquire and determine for yourself what is important to you. And if you're allocating enough resources, by resources I mean your time, energy, and money, are you allocating enough resources towards the fulfillment of your goal? Or are you, there is a disproportionate allocation of the resources? So you might say we all fall into that trap of buying a really big house or buying this luxury car or, all these things. Do you, for the amount that thing costs, do you value it enough individually, right? Because to acquire any of these things, you're parting with something else, right? You're parting with perhaps some money that took you time and energy to earn, or perhaps you're just parting with some time and energy itself in that transaction. And if you say, yes, I want this luxury car, it gives me a lot of joy to drive it. I drive it every day and I'm happy, and whatever I spent on it is completely worth it for me. Nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and buy that luxury car and enjoy it. But do not get into a huge debt or something, buying something that you don't actually value yourself. Always inquire, does this have enough value for me? And also, is it taking away some resources which I could instead allocate to something which I value, right? So there is this concept of, even in modern day-to-day, there is this concept of FIRE, F-I-R-E, which means financially independent, retire early. A lot of young people take on this goal of we want to be financially independent by the time, say, we are 35, 40, and then we want to be able to focus. Not that, of course, no one really stops working at 35 or 40, but they don't want these obligations anymore to work for just be able to, just spending all their time trying to sustain themselves, right? So then they want to be free to do what they want. So they might have certain goals in mind. You will have your own goals just because you've seen everyone else work till a certain age and and then start to do what they want. It doesn't mean you have to follow the same path. It doesn't even mean you need to start giving up your work or something. You could still be having a full work life, having a full family life, but making sure you're carving out enough time for things which are actually important to you, which are your goals, right? So all of you are probably in this class because you value your spiritual growth in some way. And so inquire more into that. How much do you value this and how much time do you want to carve out for this? Don't think you have to wait till you're, retired to really get into this. So, of course, Shastra tells us the highest goal of human life is to understand your true nature, but you will arrive at this goal in your own time. That brings us to the last D of 4 Ds. So we finished with the 6 disciplines of Tattva Sampatti. Any questions? We just have 4 minutes. I don't know. There's some questions. I prefer to take that than start a new topic. Let me inquire some. Yeah. Sujit, you have a question?
Skandaji, can you please tell me what is this mindfulness meditation?
Oh, it's I'm not an expert in that. I just mentioned some of the meditation techniques which are in common today's that you might have heard of. It's a Buddhist meditation technique about focusing on the now. I don't necessarily recommend it as a practice. I just said if you have any of these practices, any of them is good to have. In the Vedantic tradition, the most common one that we have that would be recommended would be mantra meditation.
Shall I say something about this?
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah, this question which was asked by Sujit is actually getting involved in an activity, totally engrossed. Like for example, I'm eating food. Normally we eat food with the mobile on or chit-chatting or talking. So when you eat each morsel slowly, close your eyes and think about the entire chain of that food, how that food has come from the farmer. You give full concentration on the food in all its aspects, thinking about how the food has come, how farmers have this thing involved in that, and also and how that food is going to help. What is the taste of the food and everything. So rather than thinking of something else at that while we are eating, this actually reduces the quantity of food that we eat. Number two is that proper digestion takes place. So this is about eating food. The other thing is about like we are walking. So this is called walking meditation. When you are walking, listen at the sounds of the body parts. Maybe the limbs are moving and then some pain is there in some knee portion, fingers or something like that. So our attention should be on that rather than chit-chatting, like people walk together, but they are chit-chatting. So that is how we call it any activity meditation, eating meditation or walking meditation or so and so on like that. That is what I've gone through some of the courses
Right.
in Navla, and that I've learned it.
Thank you, Avinash. That's a good
Thank you.
summary of mindfulness meditation. Yes, comes back to what we were saying about doing one thing at a time, right? You can bring, it might not necessarily, don't necessarily need to do it as a meditation practice, but just bringing mindfulness, bringing awareness into everything that you do can be very conducive. You will bring that capacity to have more chitta ekagrata. Right. So in general, having awareness through the day is great. And to build that capacity for more awareness, you can also have a sit down meditation practice that you spend 20 minutes twice a day, for example, to where, allocating that time to be completely mindful, to build that concentration capacity. With something like, say, mantra meditation can also be very useful. Any other questions? Okay. You're also welcome to post later on the group if you have any. And especially those people who are listening to the recording, please do post your questions. To the closing prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Spandanaji.
Thank you, Spandanaji.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.